You are in the Hoodwood. I'm the Black Bandit KJ Green, welcoming you to another edition of Sports from the Hoodwood. Coming up this week, will labor disputes be the thing that blow up the 2020 Major League Baseball season? Incentivizing minority hires. Why I think it's a dumb proposal. And in the NBA, were the Bulls the greatest dynasty ever to play on the court? We'll have all that. Without five, got that, head slap, and a cornucopia of sports information, opinions, and takes. It's all right here. Sports from the Hoodwood is coming at you. Fasten your seatbelts, buckle up the chin strap, and let's go.
You're tuned in to Sports from the Hoodwood, the internet's foremost location for the most honest, unfiltered commentary and insight on the world of sports. Now, once again, here's Hoodwood's hometown hero, KJ Green.
Greetings from the Hoodwood, where we hope we'll find you safe, sound, and relatively well, given the situations of the day. If you're allowed to get back into restaurants, take your time. Don't go back in so fast. But when you do go into restaurants, treat your waiters and waitresses right. Lord knows they need them. I'm your man, KJ. Welcoming you back to the Hoodwood for this mid-May edition. And we're still mostly without sports. We're left to talk about sports. We're left to speculate about sports. I mean, there are some sports that are going on at the present moment. NASCAR having basically run back into the forefront, Kevin Harvick winning at Darlington, UFC fighting in front of empty arenas, but fighting nonetheless, and taking it a big draw in the sports book. And overseas, the German soccer league, the Bundesliga, making its return to finish out its 2019-20 campaign. But there are still holes in the sporting landscape. There's still no baseball. There's still no basketball. There's still no hockey. And fans like me are still left to wonder, are we going to press play again anytime in the near future? Now, Major League Baseball is proposing a late start to its season somewhere around the 4th of July. The problem isn't starting up again. They're seemingly getting the blessings of Arizona and Florida, and many venues may be playing baseball in empty venues. Maybe the game be bit. Try it again. Many of the games may be. Try it again. Many of the games may be played in empty venues. Witness the Korean Baseball League that is started on time, but is playing in front of empty stadiums. For the moment, that's what it looks like Major League Baseball is going to do. The problem now is, as usual, the money. Snuffy says behind me, they're going to mess it up again. And trust and believe, Major League Baseball is going to find a way to screw this up. They've had an unprecedented length of labor peace, going on a quarter century since there's been any kind of labor stoppage. But could the coronavirus do what the last 25 years have been unable to do? Wreck the game again. Now, I'm old enough to remember the 1994 players' strike, when the players, figuring that the owners were going to implement a salary cap, went on strike in August of 1994. And the owners, unable to come to any sort of agreement, declared an impasse and implemented their salary cap. Now, of course, that didn't go over well with the players, who said the owners were bargaining in bad faith, which the owners are wont to do. Now, the strike ended in April 1995 when the National Labor Relations Board, headed by future Supreme Court Justice Sonia Sotomayor, ruled against the owners and basically said, get your butts back to the table and do in good faith negotiate. The owners, beaten again, went back to the negotiating table and they hammered out a labor peace, but they played the 1995 season under the 1993 labor rules. Now, in 2020, with unprecedented times facing everyone in light of the coronavirus and the way it has basically stalled out all sporting events as we know it, Major League Baseball is scrambling to try to salvage what is left of the 2020 season. There has been no quote-unquote opening day as we know it in April. Spring training is long gone, and now Major League Baseball is trying to find some way to at least make some sort of season. The total, many people are thinking, is about 80 games, roughly half the schedule. The National League may use the designated hitter for the first time in its history in games that are not involving American League clubs as a one-year stopgap. There will be no minor leagues, and there may be taxi squads of up to 20 extra players at a Major League Baseball team's disposal. That being said, now the owners are trying to grab as much as they can while the grabbing is good. You see, the Major League Baseball owners have routinely gotten their brains beat in at the negotiating table. They can't be trusted to look out for themselves, if you will. The owners are yelling at the players, save us from ourselves. We spend too much. It's your fault. You're making us spend. And the players are just like, you're giving us what you want. It's what bears the market value. The money is there. Major League Baseball is about as healthy as it ever had been. Current economic situation notwithstanding, Major League Baseball has been relatively healthy, financial-wise, over the last 25 years. But don't let the owners know that they're making money. They're not making enough money to their suit. So they're going to try to squeeze the players. In turn, the players are going to be like, y'all are going back on y'all agreements, as the owners have done time and again. And if you look at the history of Major League Baseball, the relations between the owners and the players has always been a tenuous agreement at best. The owners have shown that they can't be trusted. They have shown that they will double deal. They have shown that they will do things illegally, witness collusion in the mid-1980s and early 1990s. If you don't know about that, pick up some books and learn about it. Because the Major League Baseball owners will do dirt to try to keep their hold on the players and the players that they feel that they have developed and cultivated. Now, the players are saying, well, it's capitalism. But the owners are like, yeah, capitalism only when it benefits me and my team. The way that labor peace has been tenuous at best over the last quarter century could very well be wrecked. The owners are going to continue to push and push and push and keep making every type of unilateral demand, saying that the players want to get out and play, but they got to make sure that the things are collectively bargained. And the owners are going to play hardball to make sure that they keep as much money to keep money from going out and to keep money coming in. There's going to be TV deals. There may not be any fans. We may not see a baseball game, live baseball game, fans in the stands for another 9 to 12 months. It may be April 2021 before we see people in the stands. It's a possibility. It's a sign of the times. But the owners are going to try to get theirs. And the players have very marginal leverage. Let's take our first time out, come back and talk about the NFL. There have been some proposals on minority hires and how to incentivize minority hires. Why I think the plan that has been put forward is plain and simple stupid. So Hoodwood comes back at you after this.
Tuned into Sports from the Hoodwood, the internet's foremost location for no-nonsense commentary, insight, and opinions on the world of sports. Here now live in living color, black by popular demand. Your host, KJ Green.
You are back in the Hoodwood. My name is KJ Green, and if you haven't really figured it out by now, I am a man of color. Wow, really, a man of color. Anyway, the chances of someone of my color being a NFL head coach, I wouldn't say it's slim to none, but Slim just walked out the door pretty much. And there are very few men of color that are NFL head coaches. So off the top of my head, I can think of the LA Chargers and Pittsburgh Steelers being teams that are employing men of color as their head coach. Now, the latest coaching cycle saw only Ron Rivera, a Hispanic man, go from Carolina to Washington. And to see coordinators like George Edwards from Minnesota, Eric Bieniemy of Kansas City, be passed over again and again and again for head coaching vacancies is troubling, to say the very least. I remember some 20, 25 years ago when Tony Dungy was considered to be one of the hot coaching candidates, but continued to be passed over again and again and again for head coaching positions until the Tampa Bay Buccaneers offered him a job. And that job was considered pretty much a laughingstock. The Tampa Bay Buccaneers were a joke. Now, Tony Dungy took that team and turned it from a perennial laughingstock to a powerhouse within 6 years. But the Buccaneers ownership was not satisfied with how fast his team was progressing. They had failed in the playoffs. Tony Dungy was fired by the Buccaneers in 2001, at the end of the 2001 season. The Buccaneers then splashily hired John Gruden for some draft picks and compensation from the Raiders. John Gruden took the Buccaneers to the Super Bowl that very next year. Many people, myself included, felt that John Gruden won that Super Bowl for two reasons. One, he had a lot of Tony Dungy's players And two, he knew the Raiders' game plan because his former offensive coordinator, one Bill Callahan, was basically calling the same plays and hadn't changed anything in the Raiders' playbook. Now, the Buccaneers only won 2 playoff games after winning that Super Bowl. Tony Dungy, meanwhile, landed on his feet pretty nicely in Indianapolis, where he coached another 8 years, winning a Super Bowl with the Colts after the 2006 season. Tony Dungy is, right now, the only man of color to have won a Super Bowl. I stand corrected. Tony Dungy is one of 2 black coaches to have won a Super Bowl, Mike Tomlin being the other. As it stands now, men of color are of scarcity in the NFL. That being said, the NFL is trying, or I should say is proposing, a radical idea to incentivize teams to hire coaches and general managers of color. Basically, they are saying if you hire a coach or general manager of color, we will increase or move your draft position up. Your 3rd round draft position could go as high as a late 2nd rounder. Now, I'm all for incentives. I'm all for making things easier for men of color to obtain jobs. This, however, is, I believe, one of the stupidest proposals I've ever heard come out of Roger Goodell's mouth. And I've heard some pretty stupid ones over the years. To say to a team, hey, hire a black guy and we'll reward you, is disingenuous. It's demeaning. It's coddling. It's condescending. It is everything that is wrong about hiring men of color for head coaching and general managing positions. I got in a really argument with a stupid person on Facebook, and I do that more often than I should. But this guy tells me, well, many black coaches have won in the NFL. I quietly pointed out to him that 4 different coaches in the NFL, Tony Dungy, Marvin Lewis, Mike Tomlin, and the late Dennis Green, in relation, have won over 100 games in the NFL. And with the case of Dungy and Tomlin, have won Super Bowls. Well, they don't win. But you have black general managers like Ozzie Newsome, the architect of a Ravens team that has been a AFC powerhouse for the last 15 years, if not longer. Ozzie Newsome just retired just a couple of seasons ago. But the Ravens are going to be one of the premier teams in the NFL going forward. One of Ozzie Newsome's last picks before retiring, one Lamar Jackson. Think about it. I think this goes back to the whole thing like the black quarterback myth. That, black man can't be a quarterback, that he has a thinking position. He can't run an offense. That's a job for a field general. Well, of course, Doug Williams made that look really stupid once he won Super Bowl 22. And now look at the NFL. Look at the black quarterbacks that are prevalent in the NFL. The Lamar Jackson, the Russell Wilson, the Patrick Mahomes. You can go down the line of all the different black quarterbacks that are now in the NFL. A black quarterback now isn't an uncommon sight. What is uncommon is a black man being a head coach in the NFL. There needs to be some sort of stimuli to to move NFL owners to that position of wanting to hire a black man, a qualified black man, in its general manager or its coach's position. But it seems that these owners want the hot young talent the Sean McVays, the Cliff Kingsburys, at the expense of a Eric Bieniemy or George Edwards, who were continually being told, well, you've got to pay your dues. Well, Zach Taylor's 35 years old, and he became head coach of the Bengals. You're missing. I fail to see the point of how black men have to wait, whereas younger white men don't. Make that make sense. Let's take another time out. Come back and look at the Chicago Bulls. The Bulls. If you watched The Last Dance over the last 5 weeks, you saw a complex story involving the 1998 Bulls. Were they the last true NBA dynasty? Sports in the Hoodwood comes back at you after this.
Certified fresh taste, your host, KJ Green.
You are back in the Hoodwood. My name is KJ Green, and I liked The Last Dance. It reminded me of how basketball was 20 some odd years ago. It reminded me of my youth, watching the Bulls and watching how dominant that Michael Jordan and those Bulls were in the 90s, from 90 to 98, with that 2-year sabbatical suspension that Jordan had. But the Bulls dominated that decade. They were a dominant team, even without Jordan, for that 1.5-year period. They still were one of the NBA's elite teams, winning 3 championships in 91, 92, and 93, and then 3 more in 96, 97, and 98. The question that I pose is, are the Bulls the dynasty, the best dynasty that modern sports has seen? I mean, think about it. They are the last sports team to have won, the last NBA team to have won 3 straight NBA titles. The Warriors won 3 of 4, but then you have 3 out of 5. They've won the Western Conference 5 times in the NBA over the last 5 seasons, but have lost 2 of those 5 NBA finals, one to the Cavaliers, one to the Raptors. The New York Yankees, in about that same period of time, from 96 to 2000, won 4 titles in 96, 98, 99, and 2000. But like the Warriors did fail to win the World Series twice, in 97 and 2001. 97 they didn't make the World Series. And in 2001, they lost to the Arizona Diamondbacks. Of course, in the NFL, everyone, the gold standard is going to be the Patriots. But the Patriots have only won back-to-back Super Bowls twice. They've won 6 Super Bowls over the last 20 years. But they did not win 3 in a row. No team in the NFL has won 3 titles in a row. That has never happened. In the Super Bowl era, 55 years, there hasn't been a 3-peat. The team hasn't even made, there's only 2 teams have made 3 straight Super Bowls. But the Bulls, in that 8-year period, from the 90-91 season to the 97-98 season, were the gold standard of dominance. Michael Jordan was, without question, the GOAT, and was the bar that all other teams had to measure up to. And you notice, unlike LeBron James, who I am a fan of, but you notice that with Michael Jordan's dominance, nobody else ate. And you forget that there were great players, great teams in that era. You had Patrick Ewing, Charles Barkley, Karl Malone. Shaquille O'Neal was just beginning his rise in the latter half of the Jordan Bulls' dominance. But there were a lot of players who didn't get rings because of Jordan. Now, Hakeem Olajuwon got 2 rings. But you wonder, would the Rockets have been a dominant team? Would they have won back-to-back titles in 94 and 95 had Jordan been playing? I dare say that they wouldn't. Because while the Rockets finally put it all together in 1994 and won their first NBA title, beating the Knicks in a fine 7-game series, I think that the Rockets would not have been able to stop the Bulls from winning a 4th, 5th, 6th, and 7th NBA title. And then there begets the question. At the end of The Last Dance, the question was posed to Phil Jackson about why he did not want to come back. And Jerry Reinsdorf, who was the longtime owner of the Chicago Bulls, basically posed it, that he offered Phil Jackson a chance to come back for the 98-99 season to go after a 7th ring. And Phil Jackson turned him down. The question, could they have put the band back together? Could they have run the table for a 7th ring? Now, many people think the San Antonio Spurs in that truncated 50-game season were a asterisk type champion. I still submit, had Phil Jackson come back, Michael Jordan would have come back, Scottie Pippen would have swallowed his pride and come back for another year. They would have kept the band together. I think the Bulls earned that right to at least be beaten on the court. Because if you remember, the Bulls fell off the table in 1999. They went 13-37 with a shell of a team. They weren't the defending NBA champs. They were the Chicago Bulls. And they were a paper defending champion. But the question still remains. Are the Bulls still considered the last great dynasty of sports? You're not going to be able to put together a team like that that's going to have sustained greatness over a number of years. You're lucky if you can get a team to win back-to-back, much less winning 3 and 5 like the Warriors have done, which is an extraordinary run of itself, or win 6 and 8 like the Bulls have. Forget what the Celtics did. That's a totally different era. You're never going to have a team win 11 titles in 13 years. The dominance of the Celtics, the Yankees, the old 60s Packers, that's never going to happen given the economic climate of the sporting world today. That's never going to happen again, kids. Point blank. Let's take our final timeout. Come back with Hoodwood High Five, as well as Phat, Dap-Head Slap, and the final word from the Wood. Sports from the Hoodwood. It's down the home stretch after this.
You're tuned in to Sports from the Hoodwood, the internet's foremost location for the most honest insight, thorough analysis, and unfiltered opinions on the world of sports. Now, once again, here's the man of the hour, After Hours, your host, KJ Green.
Running third and headed for home here in Hoodwood. My name is KJ Green, and we'll wrap up with the Hoodwood High Five, Phat, Dap-Head slap, and the final word from the wood. Now I'm condensing everything with the truncated sports scene. The Hoodwood High Five will include the Phat, Dap-Head slap. First idea, I like that. The first item on the docket is KBO baseball. This takes some getting used to. I will admit that. I have been kind of casually following the Korean baseball organization as it's starting out its season. They started out just a couple of weeks ago, and the C teams like the Dinos, the Bears, the Heroes, names that you're just not used to seeing in baseball lexicon. The Wiz, the Lions, the Eagles, the Wyverns. The Wyverns? What the heck's the Wyvern? They're not that good either. They're 1-10. But you have team names that you may have heard of, like the Tigers, the Kia Tigers. It's funny, these teams, they don't represent cities, they represent companies. Like Samsung Lions, Kia Tigers, the Kaiwoom Heroes, I like that, the Heroes, the Doosan Bears, the LG Twins. So I think it's funny because I have a Samsung phone, I have an LG television, and I don't drive a Kia. My neighbor does, but I don't. But then you think, all those are Korean. But it does take some getting used to. The bat flips are cold. I love watching the bat flips. I think that American baseball could use some bat flips. I think it's stylish. Done with the right kind of flair, it's cool. It's really cool. Now let's shift gears to the NHL. Could the NHL be playing the Stanley Cup in July, August? It would be weird to see hockey being played, a cold weather sport, being played in the middle of summer. Now, I just keep harkening back to the 1990 Stanley Cup final where the Oilers and the Bruins were playing, and they had to postpone the game because in old Boston Garden, it was so hot and steamy, the ice was fogging up. And the arena and the ice level itself was fogged in. Could we see something like that happen again? It's a possibility. But the NHL is also talking about expanding the playoffs and expanding the teams in the playoffs to 24 teams. It's already messy enough as it is. But of course, Gary Bettman is adamant that there will not be a no Stanley Cup played on the Stanley Cup like it was in 2005. We'll see. I've been watching the replays of different sporting events in the Hoodwood area. The local Fox Sports affiliate has been playing Cincinnati Reds highlights from their three most recent World Series, which have been 45, 44, and 30 years ago, respectively. Makes me feel really old remembering the 1990 World Series was 30 years ago. Wow. But there are some really good entertaining replays and games that you may have not totally watched all the way, but now we're going, hey, that was a classic. Maybe you should watch it full front to back. I watched the Saints 49ers game, that just wild game from last December. And there was some serious offense in that game. And I watched part of it when it actually happened. I was running back and forth between different venues that afternoon, and I was keeping track on my phone for my fantasy teams. That was a lot of offense in that game. And that was a game worth when we were playing. So if you ever get a chance to watch MLB replays or NFL replays or NBA replays, check them out, because there's things that you don't notice in these games, and now you're going, hey, I didn't notice that before. But then you pay attention to it more now. Let's take a look at the Phat Dap-Head slap of the week. Phat Dap of the week goes to the KBO's Kia Tigers Preston Tucker, American expatriate, whose majestic 435-foot shot from the Kia Tigers won him a car. Seriously. Now, you've been in different baseball venues where they have, talking about, player hits the car, fan wins the car. I have never, ever seen this happen. Most places end up giving the car away on Fan Appreciation Day. But this one, Preston Tucker actually hit the car. And he won the car. Because there's no one else playing and no one else in the venue. So he hit it, he won it. And Tucker did it with style. Backflip it on. Now the head slap of the week goes to critics. Now I like pointing out critics. There are critics of The Last Dance who are saying that the documentary focused too much on Michael Jordan and not enough on the auxiliary or supplemental players of that great 98 Bulls team. They did some small pieces on Scottie Pippen, Steve Kerr, Dennis Rodman, but it seemed that the focal point kept being Michael Jordan, and a lot of critics had problems with it. I challenge you, those critics who criticize The Last Dance and Michael Jordan, take out Scottie Pippen, take out Dennis Rodman, hell, even take out take out Steve Kerr. Name 3 other players on that 98 Bulls team. I dare you. Now, I'm not talking about Phil Jackson. That doesn't count. Name 3 other players on that 98 Bulls team. I can. I mean, if you really want to press it. Scott Burrell, Ron Harper, and Tony Kukoc. But the casual fan, all they see the 98 Bulls is Jordan, Pippen, probably Rodman, the coach Phil Jackson, maybe Steve Kerr because he's coach of the Warriors now. But top of the mind awareness, true hoop heads knew that team top to bottom. It was a great team. The critics of The Last Dance need to really get a grip because without Michael Jordan, there really isn't a story there. It's just another good team. And now, without much further ado, let's go to the final word from the wood. I looked at the word normal in the dictionary, and according to Webster's definition, it's conforming to a standard, usual, typical, or expected. The sports world was jolted from its normal routine in mid-March when this COVID-19 pandemic really dug in its heels and people were afraid literally for their lives. Taking sports for granted is something that we really did as a society. The natural rhythm of the games, turning on, talking about, discussing games, players, activities, have become so woven into our fabric as a society, as a sports society, that we really took it for granted. That being said, the past 2.5 months have really, as a sports podcaster, someone who has been ingrained in sports over the last 30, 40 years, to realize how much we took sports for granted. It is something that has become, that was the rhythm and pulse of our daily lives, and that has been taken away. Now, as states are starting to reopen, games starting to be replayed, races, fights, golf matches are starting to creep up onto the landscape and taking notice. Will we ever get back to normal, or what will be a new normal? I hope and pray that I will be able to see a baseball game, a football game, a basketball game, any sporting event with a large number of crowds cheering on whatever team. It was weird to watch the Bundesliga and the ghost-like setting with no fans in the stands. It was jarring to see NASCAR being run at Darlington, where it's normally 80 to 90,000 fans in attendance, played before an empty house. Kevin Harvick won the race and did his usual tire spin, but instead of cheering fans, there were empty seats. I'm hoping this won't be the new normal. Watching sports is something that, like I said, we took for granted. It's been ingrained into our daily lives. But what I'm hoping for is that we don't get used to watching sports from a distance. I love my alma mater watching football games during the fall. I've been doing so for the better part of 30 years. I hope and pray that this fall I'm able to watch my alma mater. You can watch your alma mater. We can watch all our favorite teams up close and personal. And when we do, we'll be able to better appreciate what we have in being fans, in cheering on our teams to victory, booing the other team's best player, but still having a greater appreciation for the game and the ability to watch these games up close and personal, and to be able to appreciate the gift of sport and what it means to our lives. And that is the final word from the Wood. And with the music coming up in the background, you know that means your time in the Hood is just about done for this week, and I thank you so much for your visit. Now, the email is kjgreen@blackbanditproductions.com. You can send me show thoughts, ideas on topic, praise, and criticism. I open your emails and I try to respond to every email in a timely manner. You can catch the podcast weekly on a number of outlets. The show can be accessed on your phone. You can download it on the App Store and Google Play. Links to the show and the previous episodes are also available at the show site. That's hoodwoodsports@podbean.com. I'm also on Facebook, Black Bandit Productions Enterprises, Twitter, KJGreen20, and KJGreenBB, as well as on Amazon Prime. It's a great picture for hosting the show every week. I'll be here every week. I hope you will be too. So that's it from the Hoodwood. Until next time out, from the Hoodwood, fellow sports fans, I'm KJ Green.
Sports from the Hoodwood
is a Black Bandit Productions and Enterprises